في رضاك كل آلام السجون، كل ما فيها يهون، كل آلام السجون، كل ما فيها يهون. في رضاك في رضاك بغية العليل منية الكليل أن يراك أن يراك. في رضاك في رضاك كل آلام السجون، كل ما فيها يهون. في رضاك في رضاك بغية العليل منية الكليل أن يراك أن يراك. من سواك من سواك إن تفانى في هداك أو تسامى في حماك، إن تفانى في هداك أو تسامى في حماك. من سواك من سواك يطلق القيود يمنح الخلود كي يراك كي يراك. قد أتاك بالعيون الدامعات في الليالي الساجيات. قد أتاك روعة الجمال هيبة الجلال أن يراك أن يراك. من دعاك جاءت البشرى إليه بالعطايا في يديه. جاءت البشرى إليه بالعطايا في يديه. من دعاك نظرة النعيم منحة الكريم أن يراك أن يراك. في رضاك في رضاك كل آلام السجون، كل ما فيها يهون. في رضاك في رضاك بغية العليل منية الكليل أن يراك أن يراك.
الحمد لله رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. We are here, Islamic Oasis. I would like to call it Islamic Oasis Special Edition. We have a very, very, very special brother with us. Someone I think the whole Muslim Ummah would be proud of. And someone that the Muslim youth need to look up to and realize what it means to be, what it means to work for the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what it means to struggle for the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in that, the kind of sacrifices sometimes have to be given for the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Many of us in the West or even in the East, we forget that the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala requires sacrifice and requires struggle and requires hard work. And Jannah is surrounded by that struggle, and is surrounded by those difficulties, and is surrounded by those sacrifices. So today we have a very, very, very special brother with us, brother Mansoor Adayfi. Many of you may know him, those who were following what was happening right after 9/11, or after the Americans entered Afghanistan. This whole situation that was going on in Afghanistan regarding brothers, many people, innocent people, just picked up in Afghanistan and taken to Guantanamo and other jails all over Afghanistan and in Pakistan and in other CIA posts that were set up that nobody even knew they were secret places. So today we have the author, as you see the book that I have here. Don't forget us here. The author of the book, the one, someone who knows these areas so very well. And secondly, he's also working with CAGE. Many of you are very well aware of CAGE, an organization, a nonprofit organization that works out of England, London, and does a lot of this work regarding those who are, innocent and are just rotting in places like Guantanamo and others. So we have Brother Mansoor Adayfi here. He was a former inmate for almost 14 years in Guantanamo. And it is beyond our belief that we were able to get him here. So first of all, Sheikhi, ahlan wa sahlan, welcome to Islamic Oasis Live.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. جزاك الله خير وجزاكم الله خير جميعا. I should thank you all for inviting me to this interview. But also, I am not special brother. I'm just a Muslim. That's it.
Sheikh, before we start, can you give a little bit of introduction, because I probably did not do the right service to it. If you can give us a little bit of details about yourself, just so that we have a proper understanding of who you are.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. أهلا بكم جميعا. I welcome you all. I am Mansoor Adayfi from Yemen, former Guantanamo detainee or prisoner or inmate. There's like many names. It's the same way, and I am happy to be with you today.
Sheikh, you make it so simplistic, but so where do we begin? I mean, so where does this whole journey, where does it begin? Begins in Afghanistan, or does it begin in Yemen? Does it begin, get me started on this a little bit. Where does this whole situation with you being in Afghanistan begin?
Brother, the story, every story has a beginning and has an end. So I started in Yemen when I moved to finish my high school. My first time I moved to the city. So from there I finished my high school. I learned a lot, and with that time I came of age. So I wanted to finish my college education. I wanted to study computer science, because I could see at that time it is something new and something interesting. At the same time, I used to study high school. I used to study in Islamic Institute with the Sheikh Muqbil Rahmatullah alayh.
Sheikh who?
So Sheikh Muqbil Rahmatullah alayh.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, and from that,
what part of Yemen are you from, Sheikh?
I am from Raima, from
okay.
So from the north. So anyway, from that point, it was
Before you go on, it seems north of Yemen seems to be a very hard place to get to in general. I've heard, I just heard that it's very close to, as far as the structure of this area is almost very close to Afghanistan. It's very mountainous and it's very hard to.
No, it is. I guess it is just normal place. It's not like, yeah, it is like it is. There's a lot of similarities between Afghanis and Yemenis. Geographically and even like demographic, even the people and so on. But alhamdulillah, at that time, Sheikh Muqbil Rahmatullah alayh, the head of the institute, went to write a book about the Islamic groups in Afghanistan, about Al-Qaeda, about Taliban and others, because in the 90s, in the end of the 1990s or by the beginning of the 2000 and so on, there was a lot of, media at that time. Uh, in the media, there is like presence of those stuff, especially in Yemen. As you know, there was some kind of attack on USSCO, and there was no much resources or information about those groups there. So I was sent along with another brother who actually I was a researcher assistant, and he was the main guy. From that, my journey started. So it was just a research mission. We have like a specific task to do there, and in return, when I get back, Sheikh, like, he would help me with my to finish my college education and so on. Alhamdulillah, I went to Afghanistan. Then we stayed like for almost like 2-3 months run or more, and 9/11 happened. And before we jump to the book or to 9/11 or to Al Qaeda or wherever, if we just flash back a little to the 1980s and the involvement of United States government in Afghanistan, the involvement didn't start when they invaded Afghanistan 2001. Actually, United States involvement started in the 1980s when
20 years, if not 30 years prior.
Yeah.
Soviet Union, yeah.
Yes, when their interest crossed with the Afghani and Muslim, and at that time, they fought against, as you know, at that time the Mujahideen fought against the Soviet Union. That eventually the Soviet Union collapsed. So then, United States and some countries, they viewed the Mujahideen as a threat, and they started torturing, jailing and assassinating some of them. So what I want to say here, the point is what led to 9/11. It is the foreigner failure of United States, the failure of United States foreign policy, basically.
Foreign policy.
Yes, it is the failure of foreign policy of the United States in the world in general. So, before 9/11, it was war between one group, which is Al Qaeda, or one person, which is Osama bin Laden, and United States. And that war, they were attacking each other. When 9/11 happened, eventually, United States government abused and misused the opportunity to announce crusade war, or what they call it, war on terrorism. It's war on Muslims. So that led to the invasion of Afghanistan, Iraq, and they expand their military invasion, also a presence in Middle East or in Asia and Africa. Also, it led to the Guantanamo. It led to maybe hundreds of thousands, millions killed, and around 35 million displaced. So
almost a million killed since 9/11
yes,
to now. The numbers.
So if you ask at that time, if we go back to 2001 and look when 9/11 happened, when it happened, I was in Afghanistan. At my age, I didn't care about it much because I heard.
How old were you when you were in Afghanistan? When you got to
18 years old. Yeah.
18.
But when it happened, we were living in a closed country, away of the media. Almost Afghanistan, it's like intentionally isolated from the rest of the world. And Afghani people since the 1980s suffer of war after war after war. They suffered with the invasion of the Soviet Union, then civil war, then again 20 years on the invasion of the United States. So when people ask me, I said, I know what war is. I was there. So when finally the people have peace, every country hold back. I believe that Afghanis deserve peace. They deserve, like, generation, they have to see the peace. They have to see the life, because only generation after generation was fuel of war, victims of starvation, wars, and so on. So Alhamdulillah, I am so happy that Afghanistan finally found peace, and I pray to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala that Syria and Yemen and elsewhere they will find peace too. So I remember the first time when I heard about the 9/11. We were in the cafe sitting for breakfast, and we heard in the radio that there was some airplanes flew into buildings. We didn't pay much attention to it because you know I couldn't even imagine there's like building 110 floors, or why would someone fly airplane to buildings? There was like no TVs, no media coverage, no kind of like newspaper that when people think of Afghanistan, they think like they they think it's like the same way that countries. No, Afghanistan 1,000 years behind the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, when
Yeah.
you sit there, the only thing that connect you to the present to the present is the cars, other than building, people, way of life. Yeah, it is. It
I
is.
mean, when you got there to Afghanistan, I mean, there was at that time there was civil war going on.
Yeah, there was
Yeah,
civil
at that time
war.
there was civil war. So this was after the killing of Mahmoud. What's his name? The Northern Alliance, the head of the Northern Alliance,
Ahmad Shah Massoud.
Ahmad Shah
Yeah,
Massoud.
yeah.
Okay, this had okay,
Yeah, there was like war between the Taliban and the North
right,
Alliance,
the
which
Northern
backed by
Alliance.
some European and Iran, because again, always those countries meddling and they have their own interests and conflict. So Afghanistan was a victim also of the international community, the policy of the international community, because
So when you arrived to Kabul, I mean, is there universities there? Akhi? There is colleges, universities. I mean,
yeah,
there's Kabul University there. I know
yeah,
that
like
Kandahar has
brother,
one.
one of the topics that people lies about, which is like, oh, Taliban against
Education.
education of girls. It's one of our main question when we interview some of the Taliban key leaders. Why are you against teaching
Girls.
women and girls? We were surprised. You know, they show us a blueprint for university in Kandahar. Of course, like there is a blueprint for college for boys and for women, but the problem was that they don't have enough fund to build those stuff, because like as I told you, Afghanistan also is still a victim of the policy of the international community, policy and laws and so on. you know when you punish the regime, you punish actually the people.
Mm.
Now,
I mean, what
uh,
they're doing now, for instance, not releasing the money. So many people are dying. Hunger has become common. They're expecting almost 1 million people on the verge of death if they don't get any money now, or there is no food aid. Even though they were talking about schools. I mean, yesterday I was watching a documentary. They actually have opened up schools and they're running schools. They were talking to the head of the health administrator in Afghanistan, and he was saying, again, you are here, you're talking about education while you are okay with killing people by these policies. We don't understand what it is that you're trying to get out of this.
brother, when you talk about the hypocrisy, basically, and
Yeah.
when you talk about the education, and those all these, they try to, they have their own agenda and policies, and they try to back it with some non-fact. So what I can see, the international community, they don't want to have Islamic country or a successful Islamic regime, because
Mm.
it will be, like example. And if one Islamic, like if Taliban, for example, succeeded, and they will become a destination for all Muslims
Yes.
who want to live in Islamic country, who raise their family accordingly, and so on.
The
So
excuse will be over.
basically,
There'll be no more excuses for these regimes.
uh, basically, this is the fact,
Yeah.
and I like, as what they said, they believe the people well, and free of choosing. If Taliban wasn't liked by Afghans, they would never survive for the last 20 years. When people ask me, are you with Taliban? I said, I am with the Afghanis people. People deserve to live in peace. Generation, they have tenth of millions have been killed, and victims of war, starvation, and so on. And like, until when that policy will continue? Until what's the roof of the quality of the international community? So
Yeah. I mean, look,
what happened,
again,
like exactly when then, if you remember in the 1990s, when I remember I was like young at the age, and I was watching the news how Iraqi people starved and punished.
Yeah.
The idea was like, punishing Saddam Hussein. It wasn't punishing Saddam Hussein. It was the punishment for Iraqis, and we
I
can see
mean,
how
they
the
said it openly, and they were saying it on TV. I mean, Madeleine Albright, I remember saying clearly, okay, yeah, 500,000 dead children. Yeah, it's worth it. Why? Because American interest matters more than the lives of 500,000 children. So they're very clear about this. I mean, look, you would have to be beyond um, a level of stupidity to not understand what's going on. I mean, even now, as I said, with what's happening with Taliban in general or Afghanistan, where they're willing to kill a million people, starve them to death, just because they supposedly Taliban don't have schools open, and it's a very weird, yani, understanding of what life
you know
is.
the way I
It's
look at it,
unbelievable
what
hypocrisy.
brother, they preach what they call democracy and freedom of speech and so on. What they impose, it is kind of slavery. They want to promote some kind of freedom the way they want it, the way they see it, the way they should be. This is not freedom. This is worse than slavery, because
Yeah,
when you go back to the slave, I'm not praising slavery here, but when you go back to slavery, back in time, maybe people were enslaved physically, they might be mentally free, but now they want to enslave entire community, the way they believe, the way they behave, the way they don't. So basically, like this was just as used for to promote their some certain policies and punishing people.
Sheikh, let me get back to the book a little bit, but I'm sure we will always segue into the what's
Well,
happening
what
today.
I want to like basically my point was is that before we talk about 9/11 or after 9/11, we should talk before why 9/11 happened in the first place. I mean, who caused the 9/11? Was it really Muslims? 1.8 Muslims prepare a terrorist? Because now by default, in their view, Muslim by default are all terrorists. But there is
I mean,
like
if you look at, I was reading, there's another very good book, maybe you can probably access it if you can. It's called the Death of Europe, The Strange Death of Europe. And it's a very, very interesting book. I got it 2 days ago. I heard an interview about it on Saturday, and then I was sitting there reading as much as I could in the last 2-3 days. It's unbelievable, when how fearful Europe is, and in general the West is, about the growth of Muslims, and the growing population of the Muslims, immigration, refugees, and the fear that they have, that, like you were saying, that someplace the Muslims are struggling everywhere, and it just could be that just one place they might actually succeed in bringing back the Islam that they've been dreaming for. And if that happens, you're looking at Eastern Europe, for instance, Albania, or if you look at Bosnia, you look at Montenegro, you look at these areas that are already Muslim, you have parts of Europe is already gone. And then within the European countries, they're expecting that majority of the white people, for instance, in Britain and Sweden, will actually become minority. And the majority will become the outsiders, and the outsiders for them are Muslims. So there's a lot of things that they are thinking about in creating this so-called Muslims. The moment you think about Islam or Muslims as terrorism and terrorists.
If you look rather about the how the phrase started, we always say it is each word has power. So we are dealing with really smart, educated, well-organized people who launching this kind of what they call war on terrorism or on Muslims, because when you look at the behavior, how it moves, how it starts, how it moves, they start constructing the language. It is really important. Then second phase, what creating realities. Third phase, legislating laws for these realities. What I mean constructing the language. For example, war on Muslims, they call it war on terror. So they empty the word of the meaning, but the reality doesn't change. Then they created those realities, which is we are fighting against terrorism, which is against Muslims. and
You
Muslims
know,
got
they
the
said,
victims.
I don't know if you know, the first one to coin this word, war on terror, was Hamza Yusuf. I don't know if you know, so-called Sheikh Hamza Yusuf. You know, it seems like the before this, the name itself, they were calling it war on, crusades. You know, that's what the word was used
I mean,
by.
like that what George W. Bush what he said, like
Yes.
first it
So
war.
then
So
this guy goes in and he actually gave him saying that this would be a better term to use rather than crusade, because crusade means we are coming after you again, like what they did in the
yes,
past. So let's call it war on terror. And then it was coined war on terror and it went from there. So
yes.
even
So
our own
like
people, so-called scholars, are behind this.
scholars play a major role
Yeah.
because we call when وضع الإسلام في قفص الاتهام, when they put Islam in the accusation cage. So basically, when we talk about scholars of what? Scholars of what? I mean, we have to define who is scholars, because when we talk about scholars, I'm sorry. I mean, I didn't consider them scholars. When someone work for money or surface interest. I mean, when you talk about knowledge, it brings you close to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, close to the reality, and so on. That the problem came within us. So, for example, when 9/11 happened, those scholars should unite it, and they should know it is problem between two sides, Al Qaeda and United States. Islam and Muslims has to do nothing with this. But and instead, we want to form conference for peace conference for talking peace for religious dialogue. It's just bullshit. It was like someone tried to put this kind of uh, new uniform on Muslims. I'm sorry, this is the fact. This is the truth. So let us go for dialogue, war for
I
peace.
like
What
the
kind of peace?
frankness, though. I like the frankness, Akhi. This is very, I
So
like that. Yeah.
yeah, when you look, if you just open the map and look at it, just look at the map. Look Afghanistan, Syria, Yemen, Iraq, Africa.
Oh yeah, Mali,
Those
Central Africa.
problems only exist in Muslim world and Muslim countries. We didn't see that this starvation or war or private crisis
And
in
Somalia
Europe,
for
on the United
40 years.
States, in Australia. No. And if you just empty your mind with everything, just look at the map. Why this happening in those certain areas? In 2015, I had my PRP. I was standing on the board of 12 members from different departments of the United States. I said, you accuse us for being terrorists and terrorism, and we are the victim. In 2010, what they call it Arab Spring,
Hmm.
people came out. They, I told them they weren't calling for what they call Sharia or Khilafah or Osama bin Laden or Al Qaeda or Jihad. People were calling for they were calling for freedom, for human rights, for to live as humans. They were crying for the West to come and aid them, and that wasn't even enough proof for them. We still consider as terrorism. They were like shocked when I told them this. I said, "This is the fact. We are the victims of the war of terror. It's not war on terror; it's war of terror. I call it the Western terror on Muslim. But their terrorism is can put in it can have some kind of not legitimacy, but it's executed by those government, because look at Iraq now, Afghanistan, Yemen, Syria, other places too. Regardless your background, you are Muslim or not, I don't think anyone who has a sense of humanity and stuff would accept that. But again, as Muslims, we are being accused to being a terrorist, being a bad, being one to destroy the world. Brother, I don't see in a Muslim country who hold like tens or hundreds of nuclear nuke. We didn't have even one. And we're because of terrorism. So the threat is, the problem with the problem they view Muslims as a threat. The policies of the Western societies, the social life they constructed and planned, it is their destruction. Because when Muslim population increase and their decrease, it's not because Muslims have done something or planned something. Muslims believe in a family life, believe in marriage, and constructing family and so on. But when you look at the other side, what they did, they create some kind of legislation: gay marriage, lesbian, abortion. People don't don't marry more, and this is their own doing. Because
I mean,
if you construct this such policy, it will have impact on your life in 10, 15, 20 years. Of course, that would happen. And this one might discuss in one of the international professor lawyer in England, and she shocked. She said, "Yeah, I agree with you." I said, "You have to agree with me because this is the fact. Because as Muslims, this our way of life doesn't change, And why Muslims become just now a threat? How many Muslims how Muslims live in those countries for tens of years, for decades? Now eventually we become like a threat one day because 9/11 will become just a threat. Airplanes and two towers collapse will become like should be punished for the rest of our life.
I mean, no, there's no question about it, right? Even now, I think, according to their own intellectuals, that the West in general, at least now, when you're talking about Europe in general, like they asked the question, why was it, for instance, Europe was not able to stop the war in Syria? Why wasn't Europe able to stop the war in Yemen and many other places? The Europeans in general are not able to play any role in actually stopping such horrendous and crimes against humanity. I mean, what Bashar al-Assad has done in Syria is beyond belief of any human being. I mean, and he's still there, and they want him still in power. What happened in Yemen? What happened with Sisi in Egypt? Killing has become a norm in Egypt. People are put in cages, in jails. So what they were saying is that the Europe, for now, Europe has in many ways, as a society, they have collapsed. They don't have anything to offer to the rest of the world, because even as simple as human rights, they can't. Human abuse, human rights, the killing of human beings, they can't stop with all of these states. And the only one that's there now that could do something about this is United States. And United States, in many ways, is causing the actual cause and its foreign policy becoming the actual cause behind a lot of these things. So even expecting that they will be able to do anything in the Muslim world in general, or in the world in general, I don't think it's even. I think the world has realized. Is what I'm saying is that there is no serious system that can stop what is happening in the world. I mean, it's a complete decline, and it's going to continue to decline until the Muslims stand up on their own feet.
Also like the international community, the policy of the
Look, when
international
you say
community.
international community, that means United States.
I mean, it is Europe, United States, Russia.
Europe is done.
No, what I say,
I understand what
if they wanted to end the war in Syria and Iraq or whatever, and in Yemen, they could have do it. Like it's simple and easy. But everyone have their interest.
Understood, but
people do be like those. They don't care if people kill themselves or like fight, as long as their interest is guaranteed, and anyone who can, they will serve. So let them fight. So basically, I mean, the problem starts within us as Muslims. As I told you, we have bigger problem, which like people in power, they are freaks. They are like they didn't have a sense of humanity or sense of existence. Even like if someone who's a tyrant or dictator or whatever, but those people, I don't know what they live, I don't know where they come from. So they have no agenda, they have no plans, you cannot see, I don't see anyone. You could respect his intellectual, or you can see his level of education and way. All you see, tyrant after tyrant, because then we have their wisdom, then we have their grow.
Well, that's what they need. I mean, look, this is by design. This is not by, it's not by the choice of the people, or even this is by design. You need foolish people who can run countries, and you need foolish people under them who can do their bidding, and then the rest of the masses are sheep anyway. And those few who are speaking, or have the ability to speak, or who have some type of understanding, those people are put in jails. I mean, if you think about the Muslim world, the jails are for intellectuals. I mean, the joke is, if you want to learn, go to jail. You go to Saudi Arabia now, 60,000 ulama in jail. 60,000 ulama. Yesterday, I was reading this study. They said 60,000 scholars in jail. I was shocked to see. You have Salman Auda in jail. You have Safar Habali in jail. You have
brother. Just look at the head of who is the head of Saudi Arabia. This kind of freak, Mohammed bin Salman. What, like he's I
And
mean,
then so-called
I
Abdul
tried to
Latif,
find
the guy of
something like
Sheikh.
good in that person, like which like in which way? I mean, ignorant, stupid, bloody murderer. What do you expect? And a guy who wants to change. I think he led to the destruction or the fall of the kingdom.
Yeah.
Basically,
That's it.
as simple as
Inshallah,
that.
this, they're always, Allah creates the ways for destruction, Sheikh. And I think he's inshallah
الله
the
سبحانه وتعالى يقول: وإذا أردنا أن نهلك قرية أمرنا
أيوه.
مترفيها، وفي رواية أمرنا مترفيها ففسدوا فيها.
Yeah, inshallah.
Let's go back to our discussion, brother.
Yes,
So
they keep asking me, let's go back to the book. So I need to get back to the book. Although, I mean, as I said, this will be natural what we're discussing because the book has to have a history. There's a reason why this book was written. So why did you, how many people actually, how many inmates decided that they should write a book and in some ways expose what was happening in there? I mean, because that itself takes guts to write, and knowing that that could get you in trouble again, if not in the West, but also in the East.
Okay, brother, before we jump to the book, let's talk for a little about Guantanamo. As we talk about why 9/11 happened in the first place, as we say, it's the failure of U.S. Foreign policy and the misuse and abuse of 9/11. Then Guantanamo was created. Guantanamo also was created outside of the law intentionally to deprive those Muslims of their right. So as I told you, they constructed the language and creating realities, legislating some kind of laws and rules to apply or to the realities they created, which actually targeting Muslim abroad and domestically within countries. So war on terror was announced in 2001. It was two sides, foreigner and domestically. Foreigner, what they like, send military campaign, drones, occupy countries, prisons, and so on. Domestically, they also targeted Muslims by the name of counter-terrorism. So Guantanamo was created. It wasn't the first. Guantanamo is not and wasn't the worst place, but it was the place that designed to create worst places on planet. So it was chosen intentionally outside of the law so that there will be no justice. Secretive place. Guantanamo is a black hole within a military base in Cuba law was Guantanamo.
I mean, was Cuba was paid for this? I never understood this part. Was what was the actual contract between the Cuban being supposedly, and at that time he was alive, right? The brother of Castro.
Fidel Castro. Yeah,
Fidel Castro.
Yeah, the island was rented to United States, I think, for last 100 years. And but then the Cuban refused to check they get, I think, around 1,000 or 2,000, I don't know, every month or year for renting that place, but they refused to cash in a check because they wanted to take their land back. So actually, one of the things we love about it, U.S. government criticized Cuban for violating human rights. At the same time, they violating the human rights within their own lands. In Guantanamo.
Wow. Being on their land and then creating this institution,
yes,
and then torturing the people. Yeah.
So basically, like what the United States did after 9/11, as I told you, creating this reality, what they call war on terror, Muslim war on terror. They call kidnapping Muslims and from around the world, they call it rendition. And instead of call them prisoner of war, they call them detainees again, because in Geneva Convention and international law, when you call detainee, you have no rights. If you call a prisoner, then you have some certain rights. Then they call it also detainee, but also they call it the prison. They call it the detention, which means they can definitely detain Muslims indefinitely. So at that time, what they did, they created Guantanamo because, as we know, we are dealing with government, organized, funded, minds and advisors and so on. So the idea was to go to Afghanistan and to bring the one who was responsible for 9/11. But the men or the Muslims who were brought to Guantanamo, they were brought from different parts of the world, from Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Africa, Mauritania, Bosnia. Around 50 nationalities were in Guantanamo, over 20 languages spoken. The youngest detainee was a few months old. The oldest one's 105 years old. This is Guantanamo. All kind of people. You have engineers, doctors, teachers, butchers, professors, psychologists, journalists, pilots, all kind of people. So they weren't captured in the battlefield holding guns. So basically, if you go to a report by Seton Hall Law University and ACLU report that 86% of the prisoners or detainees at Guantanamo, they were either by mistaken identity or sold for bounty money. Only 8%, they said, suspected to have connection to Al Qaeda or Taliban. That what they created secret because after 9/11, United States government they want to send a message. We brought the worst people, put them in orange jumpsuit, flew them to Guantanamo, hooded, gagged, and blindfolded. We brought the worst of the worst. So they control. They were in control. They wanted to be in control of what out of Guantanamo. They will tell the world, the rest of the world, the truth. They wanted the world to believe it's the truth. It's not like nobody. They
I
don't
mean,
care about the
how true
reality.
is that? That at least from what I understand, was a lot of the even supposed people who belong to Taliban who were higher ups, who had that many of them were actually transferred to Pakistan through helicopters and others. Is that true, Sheikh, or is that like for instance, at the end, even when Osama bin Laden was killed, he was killed in Abbottabad, which is Pakistan, under the heavy military. This is a military city. So, and then if you look at even the formation of Taliban, when you look at the heads of the Taliban, many of them were in, Waziristan and these areas. So, did they actually go after the heads, or the heads already knew that this was coming and they moved on? So they had to just grab whoever they can to show
You
that they're
know,
doing something.
it was a mess. After 9/11, it was a big mess. And Guantanamo was created to sort that mess. We're going to bring everyone there, send our best interrogators to sort the file, and we can sort who. They didn't know what they were doing, basically. CIA was paying millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to bring anyone who was suspected with terrorism, what they call it. But the truth is, United States, they have bigger goal than just go after Al Qaeda or Taliban. Uh, what I can tell you, what I believe, that 9/11 loved 9/11. Sorry, some of the US government officials loved 9/11 because it gave them the reason to invade Afghanistan. They were looking for the reason to invade Afghanistan, to go to Iraq, and to announce their policy war on terrorism. This is the best opportunity. So if you look at it, what Al Qaeda did, does it justify what 9/11, how the way the 9/11, the United States government reacted and killed and imprisoned, displaced, and tortured people around the world? No. As I told you, now when we call again what they call detainees, they call enhanced interrogation technique. They call it torture. How it changed the phrase, the names, the construction, the language. We'll go back to Guantanamo, as I told you. So Guantanamo housed around 800 brothers, alhamdulillah, no women.
And
So
women?
no, I said no women.
Okay.
By the when the interrogators came and they found out, those people, not Al Qaeda or Taliban. Early report, the first few months, one of the generals said 90% of the men here shouldn't be here, and he was fined. He was fired at once.
I say, hold
Why?
on, 90% of the men should not be here.
Should be here. They have dirt. Even Dar Rumsfeld, if one of his speeches, he said most detainees who hold in Guantanamo, dirt farmers, basically. It was those countries, especially Pakistan, Afghanistan, other countries, they were interested in the money. Like they were buying people for money, and people sell. It's like a
Yeah.
huge opportunity. So when they sort out the files, but American military minds, they have another project for Guantanamo. Guantanamo was turned to be America's battle lab, which meant turn the detention facility into experimenting on the brothers and the detainees there. From the military mind said that we are going with war with Muslims for the like maybe 20, 50, 100 years. So we need to study this kind of mindset. And it is the perfect place because you have around 800 men, different mindset, 50 nationality, different part of the world, all kind of age. This is the requirement, and this is what you need to study. This kind of like people. So start the way they like how we can interrogate them, the way they talk, behave, negotiate, all kind of things. So Guantanamo was supervised, the interrogation and the camps at Guantanamo was supervised by psychologists, military advisors, and so on. It wasn't just, we are in jail and finished with you. No, it wasn't the case at all. The case was experimenting on us all the time. So as I told you, when General Jeffrey Miller arrived by the end of 2002, of course, General Jeffrey Miller, if you remember, recall, he's the one who tortured detainees in Iraq, prisoners in Iraq, and Abu Ghraib, and so on, as the scandals came.
Mhm.
He started at Guantanamo constructing and in what they call enhanced interrogation technique, or we call it like enhanced torture techniques. Started in Guantanamo, moving to Iraq and other place. There was like worse places than Guantanamo, the black sites, whether you call it in Pakistan, Afghanistan, Jordan, and many countries turned
Yeah,
their own
Bosnia,
jails to be black sites for the CIA and torture and abuse. Of course, all they need to call you, if you like, for now, for them in their view, you are a guy with the white cap and beard and glasses. Yes, you are 100% terrorist. So they can write you, detain you, torture you, abuse you, indefinitely detain, and so on. And this is the fact. So this is our life. We spent 14 years at Guantanamo, and I would try. They knew who, like at the beginning, I was when I was sold to the CIA for bounty money.
How much they sold you for, Sheikh? I'm sorry, I'm asking it this way, but what did they?
I didn't know 100,000, 150,000.
Oh
It's a
wow,
lot of money. Because
yeah.
if you sold someone who's like, because one day I was sold to be Al Qaeda leader, Al Qaeda commander leader, and 9/11 insider. Imagine this is my accusation. They told me I was planned with Bin Laden 9/11.
Oh
So
wow.
such big fish. What they call me, big fish. So when you look at if you look at the photos I send you, 9/11 insider, Al Qaeda commander. So I was only like 18 years old. I turned 19 at Guantanamo. So yeah. It is like, as I told you, this is their own interrogation and the way that we were treated. So if you see my photo and they told you this Al Qaeda insider, 9/11 insider, Al
Yeah.
Qaeda commander, you wouldn't know because that what the Americans said. But by the 2015, they said it is unclear if he actually joined Al Qaeda. I said, no, you either said he's Al Qaeda or not Al Qaeda. I said, no, we cannot just say we detain an innocent man for around 15 years. It's simple as that. They told me we have to say something at least. They knew, what they said in the government report. It is actually unclear if he joined Al Qaeda or not. None of Al Qaeda members or Al Qaeda leaders recognize him to be a member of Al Qaeda. I mean, their own words, literally word by word. I can send you the report. So when I told Mike it was an argument, I said, no, you have to say he's Al Qaeda, who's not Al Qaeda. They said, no, I'm not saying that. So basically, who cares? As I told you, Guantanamo, there is no justice. If you're in Guantanamo, no law apply there. It is a lawlessness place, no law. I mean, they can do whatever they want to, the way they want, whenever they want. So there wasn't any kind of like
This type of institution, what is it? Directly under DOD? What does it go? Department of Justice, Department of Defense.
yeah, the
Where does it come
Department
under?
of everything, like what the PRPs.
As far as like a place like Guantanamo, I mean, I don't, it's not, obviously it's not based on any constitutional law. So
There is none.
they're making
This
laws as they go.
The problem is Guantanamo now. It was created out of the justice system. Now they try to apply justice, not apply. They try to make it look. There is justice. There is no justice. If you need to apply justice, you have to include it in American justice system. It is simple as that. If someone found guilty, prosecute them, sentence them. This is the logic of justice. It's simple as that. But at the same time, what they have done to the detainees in prison Guantanamo, different document, torture, abuse. As I told you, there is no law. If you end up in Guantanamo, you have no rights, you have no law, you have no justice. So
you said something like the oldest brother that was there was 105 years old.
Yeah, and
Afghani, was he also treated the same way as the rest of the younger brothers?
The same way we're treated. He was my neighbor. The man was one of them 103, the other one like 105 years old. So it was one of the most painful experience about Guantanamo because I was placed between the two of them, 105, 103 years old. Yeah, imagine like they were treated the same way, and but alhamdulillah they released in the first year because they were afraid they might die there because it's too old. I send you I think some photos of the guy 105 years old. So we are talking like when you moved to Guantanamo. Guantanamo, as I told you, was shifted to a place where they started studying on detainees and prisoners, constructing policies and torture techniques and so on. So there is still now 39 brothers still at Guantanamo. I think over 10 of them already have been cleared. Some of the brothers who still Guantanamo have been cleared since 2010 and 9. They're still there. A man cleared to be released, innocent, yet they're still there. Because
is that why they can't find a place for them? They don't know where to send them. They just don't.
No, they can't. It's not they're not saying they didn't have a problem with find a place. It's not about this. It's a big mess. It's a big mess, and government. There is no one who actually had a sense of justice, of sense of humanity to look at those cases. Either prosecute this man if they're like release them. But I think this is the first time in United States history to hold prisoners for the last 20 years without kind of charge or crime or trial. Simply, one of the questions I used to ask.
And after 9/11, and actually even many different places, just the process of going through the system itself is a punishment.
No. I wish if Guantanamo was a system. There is no system. It's a chaos.
No, meaning like they took you guys in. No one knows what crimes that you actually did. There's no crimes. They can't say anything because they don't know anything. And then they put people there. Oh, let's get you processed. That processing takes 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I mean, it seems like the process of even trying to get something itself is punishment by itself, because you spend 5, 6, 7 years just trying to figure out, what's going to happen to you, what you will be, you'll be charged with, because the people themselves have no clue what crimes they committed.
I mean, when they brought people, they have no files, they have no names, no photos, no profile about anyone there. I mean, what they were looking for, they were looking nothing actually. It was a mess. The first victim of Americans is the justice system itself. So when you empty that place from the justice, destruction will be created. I mean, it's a balance. Either apply justice or apply the result of the destruction, the wars and everything, because the lack of or the absence of justice. As simple as that. And peace can only achieve by justice. Whether at human level, at individual level in your life. For example, if you balance your life, eating, sleeping, exercising, working, praying, and so on. If you balance based on justice, you will have a peaceful in your life. But if you neglect that balance of justice in your life, also you have like the like devastation result, as we see now, like in individual level life. So when you apply to the system, I mean, the system we were created, the system, the justice system or other justice systems we created. Why we created in the first place? It's for the betterment of humanity, to serve humanity, to apply justice, to achieve peace, and for everyone. That's what. But when you start tilling those systems and you created, this was going to happen. So when American went to Afghanistan and they detain and imprison and kidnap people, torturing and so on, and then they want to apply justice. If you want to apply justice, you have to apologize. You have to acknowledge what happened, apologize, and compensate and admit what happened there. But if you want to apply justice because it's they just want to admit they made a mistake, because that will make them look bad. At the same time, it's kind of like, I don't know what they have in their head. But it is simple to achieve justice. It's simple and easy, but they want to do it because simply you're a Muslim. You have no rights.
Sheikh, you write, going back to the book again, I just, so you're known as Detainee 441, it seems.
Yeah, that was my serial number at Guantanamo, internment serial number at Guantanamo.
441. So I mean, this is what, like, detainee number 441, meaning this is how many were there total?
Totally was around 800, specifically
Yeah,
779 brothers, as I told you. But as I told you, Guantanamo was a place, is a place where, when we brought Guantanamo, we weren't brought to a jail or system jail, but already have the process, have the rules, the everything. It was created out of the blue, first,
Mhm.
outside of the law system. When we arrived there, we have no connection to each other, and it's a new place. Everything is different. So when we arrived there, that place was controlled by the military, not by like policing, by the United States prison system. Those soldiers, they have no idea how to treat us, how to deal with us. So there was no any kind of like SOP or rules for treating us. Everyone treated the way they want. There was no kind of like boundaries or
Rules, conditions, nothing.
yes. So you are the victims. At the same time, when you arrive there, imagine 50 nationalities, different languages. It was hard and difficult. And when the first time when they took the hood off my head when I arrived there, I was called detainee 441. From that point, you become just a number in the system. It's not the system. Become a number in the chaos.
Sheikh, I mean,
When
when you were taken,
when I looked around me, I saw only men in orange jumpsuit, all of us shaved, head beaten, swollen faces, bruises everywhere. You are not allowed to talk. You cannot stand. You can't talk. You can't pray. You you can even look at the guards. Imagine this is your life now. So, well, the things that make you who you are, and every individual human being, what make us who we are, our names, our faith, value, morals, ethics, memories, experience, knowledge, family. This will make us as a person, when someone put you in a place and try to take this from you, start with your name, you become a number. You cannot pray, you cannot stand, you cannot talk, you can't. Also, Guantanamo was Guantanamo, we was totally disconnected and from the rest of the world. So we had no shared life with each other, because now part of your family, of your community, of your friends there, they are part of your life. You are part of theirs. You have a shared life, shared memory, experience, memories, and so on. But at Guantanamo, we had nothing, only in common with just Muslims.
في رضاك في رضاك كل آلام السجون، كل ما فيها يهون، كل آلام السجون، كل ما فيها يهون. في رضاك في رضاك بغية العليل منية الكليل أن يراك أن يراك.